Imagine a woman so feared and resented that her husband's friends called her Gala the Plague. Now imagine a man who, at 25, was terrified of the female body. At first glance, they seem utterly mismatched. She, a sharp, predatory presence with an unsettling gaze. He, a fragile performer, hiding his anxieties behind silk shirts and theatrical gestures. By all logic, their meeting should have ended in awkwardness, maybe even failure. And yet, it became one of the most powerful and unusual creative unions in the history of art. Salvador Dalí would later call her my demoness, my golden talisman. But those words only begin to capture what she truly was to him. Because Gala didn't just love Dalí, she created him. Or perhaps more accurately, she saw what he could become and refused to let him be anything less. Long before they met, Dalí liked to claim that he already knew she existed, that somewhere in the world there was a woman named Gala, destined for him. Whether this was intuition or myth-making is impossible to say, but myth, after all, was his native language. That woman was born Elena Diakonova, a Russian girl who left her homeland young and rebuilt herself in Europe. She became Gala, a name that evokes celebration, brilliance, something unforgettable. By the time she met Dalí, she was already the wife of the poet Paul Éluard and a central figure in avant-garde circles. But even then, she unsettled people. Many found her ambitious, calculating, even dangerous. There was something in her that resisted definition, and perhaps that was exactly her power. When Gala met Dalí, he was not yet the figure we recognize today. He was painfully shy, deeply insecure, and almost paralyzed by his fear of intimacy. The world overwhelmed him. Women frightened him. Even ordinary things, like crossing a street, could feel insurmountable. So he performed. He exaggerated himself, built a persona, turned vulnerability into spectacle. And then one day, on a beach, he saw her. Not her face, not her expression, just her back, turned toward him. And somehow, that was enough. In that moment, something clicked into place. Later, he would describe it almost mystically, how he recognized her instantly, as if she had stepped out of his imagination and into the real world. Their first encounter, however, was anything but graceful. Dalí approached her, tried to speak, and suddenly burst into uncontrollable laughter. He couldn't say a word. It could have ended there. But Gala saw something in him that others did not. She took his hand and said, quietly and with complete certainty, "My little one, we will never part again." And strangely, that's exactly what happened. Their relationship never fit into ordinary categories. Gala was 10 years older, and from the very beginning, there was something almost maternal in the way she treated him. She guided him, protected him, shaped him, but at the same time, she anchored him, gave structure to a mind that might otherwise have dissolved into chaos. For Dalí, she became essential. For Gala, he became a vision she was determined to realize. She left behind her life in Paris, comfort, status, stability, and followed him to a remote coastal village where they lived in near poverty. There was no electricity, no running water, no certainty of success. And yet for Gala, none of that mattered, because she believed, with absolute conviction, that Dalí was a genius, and more importantly, she knew what to do with that genius. From that point on, they functioned almost as a single entity. Dalí created endlessly and obsessively, while Gala built the world around that creation. She managed practical life, negotiated with galleries, cultivated relationships with collectors, and positioned him exactly where he needed to be. She wasn't just supporting his career, she was constructing it. Under her influence, Dalí entered one of the most productive periods of his life. He developed his famous paranoid critical method, deliberately pushing himself into altered states of consciousness to access the subconscious. He painted with extraordinary intensity, as if creation itself had become instinctive. And significantly, he often signed his work not as an individual, but as a union. Gala Salvador Dalí. It was his way of acknowledging that what they had built could not be separated. Even their contemporaries struggled to define them. Some said they were not husband and wife, not artist and muse, but two halves of the same mind. But this unity came with its own contradictions. Gala was never faithful in the traditional sense. She had lovers throughout their life together, often much younger than she was. And yet, Dalí accepted this, almost as if it were part of the structure of their relationship. Jealousy, in their world, seemed to operate by different rules. What mattered was not exclusivity, but connection, her continued presence in his life, her role as the force that sustained him. As Dalí's fame grew, so did the scale of the myth they were creating together. He became not just an artist but a spectacle, instantly recognizable, impossible to ignore. The mustache, the performances, the carefully crafted eccentricity, all of it contributed to a larger narrative. And Gala, always attentive, ensured that narrative never lost its momentum. Whenever public interest began to fade, she found ways to renew it, to keep him at the center of attention. She understood something crucial, that art alone does not guarantee immortality. It needs a story, and together, they became that story. But time, inevitably, began to shift the balance. In the 1970s, Dalí's health declined. Parkinson's disease gradually took control of his body, making it harder and harder for him to work. And yet, the image of Dalí as a tireless creator had to be preserved. Gala did everything she could to maintain that illusion, ensuring that the world continued to see him as active, brilliant, unchanged. By then, she had achieved everything she set out to build: wealth, influence, control. Dalí even gifted her a medieval castle, Pubol, where she lived alone. He himself was allowed to visit only with her written permission. It may seem unusual, but for them, distance had its own logic. As Dalí once suggested, closeness can extinguish desire. Then, in 1982, Gala died. Dalí sensed it immediately. According to those around him, he suddenly cried out, "Gala is dead." Whether coincidence or something deeper, it marked the moment everything changed. After her death, he withdrew almost completely from the world. He stopped speaking, stopped eating, stopped engaging with life in any meaningful way. Without Gala, the structure she had built around him began to collapse. He lived a few more years, but the force that had sustained him was gone. In 1989, Salvador Dalí died. He had made one final, unusual request: to be buried beneath the floor of his own museum so that visitors would walk over him. Even in death, he remained part of the spectacle. And Gala? She rests in her castle, exactly as she lived, apart, self-contained, almost untouchable. In life, they were inseparable. In death, they are divided by space, but united by something far more enduring: the myth they created together. Dalí once said, "The most important thing in the world is Gala and Dalí. I love us both." And perhaps that is the closest we can come to understanding them. Not as a simple love story, not as a conventional partnership, but as something more complex. A shared creation, a fusion of ambition, devotion, illusion, and genius. Their story doesn't really end. It simply continues, retold, reinterpreted, and, like everything they touched, suspended somewhere between truth and invention.